we've organized a big open letter that is really making the simplest of asks for OpenAI. The current state of things is that the public is owed a fiduciary duty by OpenAI as the beneficiaries of their charitable mission. So you think we have, quite a lot at stake in this restructuring negotiation. Meanwhile, it seems to be happening behind closed doors in a boardroom with OpenAI on both sides of the table.
Welcome to For Humanity, an AI Risk Podcast, episode number 68, Forcing Light into the Darkness of OpenAI. I'm John Sherman. Thank you so much for joining me. This week, our guest is Tyler Johnston, Executive Director of the Midas Project. Tyler and the Midas Project just this week released an important letter making big news demanding transparency at OpenAI. The signatories include a group of more than 100 Nobel laureates, professors, whistleblowers, public figures, artists, and nonprofit organizations, all releasing this letter asking OpenAI to tell the truth about its restructuring.
Welcome to For Humanity, Tyler. Really excited to have this conversation. I think you've been doing some super important work, lots of different things. So I want to get into all of it. You watched the show a little bit, so you probably know I like to start out with a little bit of how'd you get into this whole thing. So maybe just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and how you got into this whole crazy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, John. I have an interesting background. I started in animal rights, actually. So that was my first job out in college. I was working for an animal rights group called the Humane League. There I ran pressure campaigns that were asking food companies to adopt higher welfare standards for their animals. At the same time, had been following AI, since 2020 maybe. I remember playing with early OpenAI products like Jukebox and GPT-2 and really being astonished with what they were doing. And at the time, it was astonishing that they could create a coherent poem that almost hits every rhyme or something like that. So yeah, I was doing that, and then ChatGPT came out. And I was like, oh, wow, the world's starting to notice. And then GPT-4 came out, and I was like, whoa, this isn't slowing down. This is actually going where people were saying it was going. And at the time, I was like, I don't know, that sounds pretty remarkable to me. I don't think we'll ever have AI systems that could pass the bar exam or perform at graduate levels in STEM. And
wow, and this is in 24, 23, 24, you're thinking this?
Yeah, this would have been in 23. And so,
wow,
yeah, I quit my job in 23 and was playing around for a while for how I was going to pivot to AI. And then in 24, started this organization, the Midas Project. That was a little over a year ago. And yeah, it's been a crazy ride ever since.
Amazing. So tell the audience about the Midas Project. Let me know what is going on at the Midas Project. And I do want to just say at the start here, you have some really exciting new stuff that we're going to be talking about here that is just going to be kind of in the public space when the show comes out. So that's really exciting. But first, let's just get into kind of Midas Project in general.
Yeah, totally. So the Midas Project is a Watchdog nonprofit. So we are something of a mix between an advocacy group and a research group and an evaluator. And our focus is on the frontier AI companies. So we're looking at companies like OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and trying to really dig into their risk management practices, to their corporate governance, to reports from their ex-employees, and try to find information that's of the public interest and to get that information in the public, whether it's pitching it to journalists or publishing it ourselves, trying to make sure that there is some broad awareness of what's happening here, what the people in Silicon Valley think they're doing, what might be posed today and, in the future, as in 18 to 36 months, in tomorrow in a certain sense. So, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Cool. And so you looked at the landscape and you thought, obviously we have these companies driven by profit incentives, doing things that are affecting every human on Earth without their consent in potentially very bad ways. And you were like, I'm going to start a watchdog group. Did you have any experience in that kind of thing? Or how did you come to this is my org, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it was really direct from my background in animal rights, where it was just obvious to me that there are things that companies do to animals that no consumer is okay with. And the reason that it happens is that there is this inferential distance between where the consumer is when they're making their product in a nice sanitary grocery store and what's actually happening behind the scenes, often for the sake of cutting costs and the race to the bottom that capitalism sometimes generates. And so I saw the same thing happening in AI, where companies were trying to move quickly. Companies were in many times cutting corners or abandoning promises they'd previously made. And these were things that were obviously egregious, things that I don't think any consumer, any average ChatGPT user would be comfortable with. And it seemed like part of the problem here is that there is the same gap. Like there's this metaphorical curtain that is dividing the like neat sanitary, like log on to your chatbot and have it say nice things versus the actual like race to superintelligence that's happening behind the curtain. And so it was a really neat transition where I saw the same dynamic. I was like, hey, maybe the same set of tactics that have worked for climate activists in the past and animal rights activists will also work for AI safety activists. And so that was how the Midas Project got started.
Super, super interesting. All right, so you start watchdogging these companies, and there's a lot to watch and a lot to see.
Too much. Yeah, we're only getting a slice of it.
So we're going to talk about the OpenAI files and all that stuff, but maybe let's first get into the big new thing that you guys are going to be dropping this week. Tell me about it.
That's right. So in collaboration with Encode, we've organized a big open letter that is really making the simplest of asks for OpenAI. They have this big restructuring coming. There's reasons that we'll get into here that I think that they've been less than clear with the public about what exactly that's going to entail. And so we've organized this letter that has now been signed by dozens of civil society organizations, multiple Nobel laureates, academics from around the world, Geoffrey Hinton, Sir Stephen Fry, Stuart Russell, a number of public figures that is asking OpenAI to answer a set of 7 relatively simple questions about their restructuring. Those questions include, what of the current directors are going to receive equity in the new company or public benefit corporation when it's spun up? Will that company still have the legal right to prioritize its mission over the interest of shareholders? What will become of the safeguards that they've committed to in the past, like the profit caps and the so-called stop and assist commitment? And really to put that information out there so that way the details of this restructuring are known. Because the current state of things is that the public is owed a fiduciary duty by OpenAI as the beneficiaries of their charitable mission. So you think we have quite a lot at stake in this restructuring negotiation. Meanwhile, it seems to be happening behind closed doors in a boardroom with OpenAI on both sides of the table. The OpenAI nonprofit board negotiating with what will become the for-profit company and their investors on the terms of what that company might look like, despite the fact that OpenAI, for the past 10 years since it was created, was meant to exist solely for the pursuit of its charitable mission and not in the interest of any shareholder. So that's the basis for this letter.
Wow. And first of all, just tell me about going through the effort of getting all these important people to sign your letter. Was that easy? Was that hard? Is it the kind of thing where if you get, a couple of big guys, everybody else falls in line? Or what does that effort look like?
Yeah, it's just been a bit of a sprint emailing people for the most part over the past week or two. But luckily, people are pretty receptive because the letter you'll see when it comes out is relatively common sense. It's asking for basic transparency, the sort of thing that is hard to object to. And it unites the concerns for a lot of people who've spoken up about this in the past. So, our co-organizer Encode previously released a letter called Not for Private Gain that was making a set of arguments for the attorneys general to keep in mind when they're considering this. Meanwhile, there is a coalition now called the Eyes on OpenAI Coalition that was spearheaded by, I believe, the San Francisco Foundation and some other groups in California that had a set of concerns around charitable assets and what's actually becoming of the public's entitlements here. And they're on board too. So in many ways, it's like different groups who have different interests here coming together to say, like, at the very minimum, we can agree that more transparency is needed. And so, yeah, we've been pretty scrappy trying to gather as many signatories as we can. And indeed, this is an issue that really cuts across all sides of our society. So actors and creatives have a voice here that is especially relevant. Professors in the humanities and in STEM and in AI have a voice that's relevant. Certainly civil society organizations do.